In a quiet, upscale neighborhood in Arizona's Catalina Foothills, an 84-year-old woman named Nancy Guthrie settled in for the night. She was home, and she was safe. But by the next morning, Nancy, the mother of Today show host Savannah Guthrie, was gone. In her place, a chilling series of digital clues and disturbing physical evidence that didn't point to someone who had wandered off, but to a victim taken from her home against her will. The home's doorbell camera had been disconnected. Her pacemaker's digital monitoring system went offline. For 24 days, a family has been tormented by one question, and investigators have been consumed by a single mission: to find out what really happened to Nancy Guthrie after the cameras went dark. This is a story of meticulous crime, a high-stakes investigation, and a family pleading for a miracle. January 31st, 2026, started as a completely ordinary Saturday for Nancy Guthrie. At 84, she was described as mentally sharp and independent. Living on her own in the Tucson area, a community she called home for over 5 decades. Though she had limited mobility and relied on daily medication, her life was full. That evening, she went to her daughter Annie's house for a family dinner, a routine of comfort and connection. At approximately 9:48 p.m., Nancy's daughter or son-in-law allegedly dropped her back off at her house. Surveillance data allegedly confirmed the garage door closed just 2 minutes later at 9:50 p.m., sealing the home for the night. Inside were all the things she would need for the next day: her phone, her car, and the critical daily medications she couldn't go without. Every piece of evidence suggested she had no intention of leaving. She was home for the night. But as the hours stretched into the deep, quiet dark of the Arizona desert, a sinister chain of events was just beginning. The first sign of trouble came in the dead of night. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, a key piece of the home security was neutralized. The Nest doorbell camera was disconnected. Just before the feed went dead, the camera captured an image: an armed individual in a ski mask who appeared to be deliberately tampering with the lens. Just 25 minutes later, at 2:12 a.m., another digital ghost appeared. Even with the camera disconnected, its back-end software logged a motion event. Then, at 2:28 a.m., the most alarming signal of all: the digital monitoring service connected to Nancy's pacemaker suddenly went offline. To investigators, this wasn't a random glitch. It created a terrifyingly narrow 41-minute window in which Nancy was likely taken from home, an abduction in the dark, with the victim possibly asleep in her own bed. The first inkling that something was wrong came not from alarm, but from an absence. On the morning of February 1st, Nancy, a regular churchgoer, failed to show up at a friend's house where they planned to watch a church service live-streamed together. A concerned friend from the church alerted the family. It was a small deviation from her routine, but it was enough to cause alarm. Around 11:56 a.m., relatives arrived at her home in the Catalina Foothills to check on her. They found the house eerily quiet. Nancy was gone, but her most essential items were still there. Her phone was left behind, her daily medications were untouched, and her car was parked right where it should be. These weren't the actions of someone who planned to leave. At 12:03 p.m., the family made a frantic 911 call, and Pima County Sheriff's deputies arrived at 12:15 p.m. They immediately recognized the scene was suspicious. Knowing Nancy's physical limitations, they understood she couldn't have just wandered off. The search mission quickly became a criminal investigation. This wasn't a missing person case. It was a crime scene. This case has relied heavily on digital forensics, from recovering surveillance data to tracking pacemaker signals. It's a reminder of how much of our lives are connected. Just as investigators use technology to piece together a timeline, having a secure digital life is more important than ever, as is a fresh cup of coffee to keep you going while staying caught up with investigations and reporting. That's why I want to briefly talk about our sponsor, who helps keep us going daily and developed a blend specifically for all the men and women in corrections, law enforcement, nurses, and all first responders, as well as helping support our online presence. You can check them out at goldrushfever.com too, and find them in their link in our description. Now back to the story. As the Pima County Sheriff's Department secured the home, the case escalated with disturbing speed. The evidence was stark. Drops of blood found on the front porch were soon confirmed by DNA analysis to belong to Nancy Guthrie. Any hope that she had left willingly was erased. Sheriff Chris Nano stated publicly that he believed she was taken against her will. This was an abduction. The investigation became a joint effort with the FBI, who brought in their elite critical incident response group from Quantico, Virginia. The Bureau canvassed the neighborhood, using drones, search dogs, and extensive aerial searches of the rugged Arizona terrain, but they found no trace of Nancy. Then, the case took another dark turn. Ransom notes began arriving at local media outlets. While Sheriff Nanos urged caution and said investigators were taking the demands seriously, he couldn't confirm their legitimacy. The notes added a terrifying new layer to the mystery, but provided no proof that Nancy is still alive. On February 10th, the FBI released the chilling images from the doorbell camera, showing the masked and armed individual at Nancy's door. They hoped someone might recognize the person's build or their Ozark Trail backpack. Thousands of tips poured in, overwhelming the phone lines. A person of interest was briefly detained and questioned, but was later released with no charges filed. The identity of the figure in the video remains a mystery. With no suspect in custody, investigators started piecing together theories. One prominent theory was that the abductor had performed prior reconnaissance. The FBI released images showing the suspect in different attire, one with a backpack and one without. This led to speculation that the person has scoped out the house on a previous day. However, Sheriff Nanos quickly clarified that because the images lacked timestamps, any suggestion they were from different days was purely speculative. Still, the idea of a targeted attack persisted. Profilers noted that the evidence didn't suggest a random break-in. The careful disabling of the camera and the apparent knowledge of the home's layout pointed to someone who had selected Nancy specifically. Meanwhile, the investigation continues hitting dead ends. DNA was analyzed from gloves recovered in the area, but it failed to produce a match in the National CODIS database. The massive influx of public tips, while well-intentioned, has not yet yielded a breakthrough. Every lead was followed, every piece of evidence scrutinized, but the central questions remain. The person in the video is a ghost, and Nancy Guthrie is still gone and missing. 24 days. For 24 agonizing days, the family of Nancy Guthrie has been living in a state of suspended horror. On February 24th, her daughter, Savannah Guthrie, made a desperate public appeal, her voice heavy with pain, but filled with a sliver of hope. The family announced a reward of $1 million for any information leading to their mother's recovery. "Someone out there knows something," Savannah pleaded. "Please come forward now." The massive reward underscores the desperation and the standstill in the case. Investigators and the family are left with a constellation of terrifying facts: a masked intruder, a disconnected camera, a lost pacemaker signal, and confirmed blood on the porch. But the motive remains a murky unknown. Was it a kidnapping for ransom that went wrong? A targeted attack with a more personal motive? Or a botched burglary that escalated into a violent abduction? The person responsible for Nancy Guthrie's disappearance is still out there. The FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department continue to ask for the public's help, urging anyone with any information, no matter how small, to contact them. For a family holding on to hope and for investigators seeking justice, the answer is somewhere in the silence, waiting to be found. This is Scape News. We thank you, and as always, stay safe. Welcome to the Inner Circle. This isn't just a membership, it's a mission. You're supporting forensic truth, mythic blends, and ceremonial broadcasts that honor every moment. Members unlock exclusive enhancements, behind-the-scenes alerts, and direct access to the pulse of Scape News and leading sponsor, Gold Rush Fever Specialty Coffee. Join us and help shape the signal. We thank you, and as always, stay safe. That's the latest from Scape News. We're live. We're watching. We thank you. Subscribe, like, share, and ring the bell so you don't miss what breaks next. Stay with us. We appreciate you, and as always, be safe.